My name's Allie. It is so nice to be with you all on Sunday morning in Australia. We are joined by Gull. Welcome, Gull. Thank you for meeting with us this morning or this evening, your time.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
So before we get started, we have a tradition here in Australia where we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. And I'm so excited to be chatting with you this morning. It's a real pleasure. We've had a couple of conversations, and I'm absolutely mesmerized by the work that you do. A couple of things for everybody that is joining us this morning. So we're going to be together for about 45 minutes, and we'd like everybody to feel free to put any questions you might have. There are two ways you can do this. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat box. So feel free to put any questions or comments you have in that chat box. We'll be monitoring them. And then there's also a Q&A function. So you can also feel free to put in your questions there, and we will try and get to some of them along the way. So very briefly, and I'm not going to waste too much time on this, I'll share with everybody a little bit about Dunera. So really, Dunera is an online community, an online Jewish community and platform. And we're a group of volunteers, essentially, and we are passionate about bringing the best content from here locally, but also around the world to our community. It was really started in lockdown as a way to connect people, especially those that were really engaged in creative cultural community and all of a sudden found themselves stuck at home. And we are stuck at home again if you're dialing in from Sydney in New South Wales, and Victorians have been in and out of lockdown for over a year. So it's a real pleasure to have you here, Gull. Feel free, everybody, to put your questions and comments in. We might jump straight in. No one's here to hear from me. They're here to hear from you, Gull. So Gull is originally from Israel and moved to New York when she was 20 after your military service. Is that right?
That's right. Born and raised, and kind of took the leap to what I thought would be a 6 months of blowing off steam post-military service. And years later, met my Israeli husband here and have my two daughters here. And here I am in New York.
And so tell us a little bit about your story.
So both my parents were Sabra. They were born and raised in an Israeli kibbutz in the northern part of Israel. Very salt of the earth, kind of hardworking people all their lives. I'm the youngest of four. What else can I say? There's so many stories. My father was a big military man, and unfortunately was a POW during one of the wars. And upon his triumphant return, he said, "Let's have a son to celebrate my return." And 9 months later, I was born. Still very much in touch and visit frequently my family back home. Unfortunately, I haven't seen my 85-year-old mother in close to 2 years now. I'm hoping COVID just eases off a little bit at some point soon so we can all resume some life, and I would go back and visit if I can.
Yeah, I think your words echo a lot of the sentiments of people probably on this session today. Everybody's missing loved ones that they've been separated from, for various periods of time. So I want to jump right into your passion and your business, Balabus. And I've really introduced you as the Jewish Marie Kondo. But this is turning out to be a bit of a point of contention, because actually, for everybody on the call, it turns out that Gull's arch nemesis is Marie Kondo. So for those of us that don't even know who the hell Marie Kondo is, share a little bit about who she is and why you are kind of on the other end of the work that you do.
Spectrum. Well, Marie Kondo is a Japanese space organizer. Her big claim to fame is a very unique approach to the relationship between man and matter. so to speak, and she really invites her clients to seek joy in their homes. And so items that do not spark joy, really, she invites them to let go and rid the house from that type of energy. Um, I can't say much more about her, as I have not studied that, or nor do I practice that approach. Really, my juxtaposition to hers is, in my view, stuff doesn't always spark joy, and that's okay too.
Well,
Um,
we are Jewish, right? It can't
ex-
all be about joy. We've got so many other emotions, right? We've got
and
guilt, we've got shame.
well, that we all have. I don't think it's exclusive to the Jewish nation, but we definitely, us Jews, but also others, have stuff we inherited, stuff that is part of our lineage that we really care deeply about, and it doesn't necessarily, that's not the only emotion it evokes. And in my view, that's quite okay. It doesn't mean you need to let go of it. My approach is structured via 3 pillars. It's a lot more organic. She's a Japanese, structured, gorgeous lady with very clear systems. Mine are a simple 3. I invite people to define what's essential. We define that together, but it's often theirs to say.
Mm.
Um, from that, we determine what can be eliminated. And I work with my clients to, when I can meet them in person, actually take the stuff off their hands and out of their homes or spaces, and dispose of them myself. And I'll talk a little more about the environmental or eco-friendly approach that I practice. And the 3rd pillar is really to invite people to explore what is emerging for them now. And
Mm.
I think in our lives, we can all agree there are chapters that invite different needs or wants. And this exploration of what is emerging is part of a mindfulness, a more holistic approach, which stems from some of the professional background I've accumulated over the years.
Yeah, it's such fascinating concepts to try and understand. So take me back to step 1. So identifying what's essential.
Right.
So we've got so many people on this call today, and we're not going to be able to see your faces. You're all you've all got your cameras turned off and you're all on mute, right? But if you could all look around whatever physical space you're in right now, as Gal explains what essential really means, and look around that space and ask yourself, what are you identifying that is in fact fitting that description? So Gal, tell us what's essential.
That's beautiful. That's Allie hired immediately. Of course, the coach that you are. I think also I invite you to also close your eyes and not necessarily seek the items and attach yourself to that practice. It's really more, as you think about what is absolutely the most important stuff for you to have. There's some hygiene stuff, there's some everyday use stuff, there's some heirlooms that are essential, there's some books that are a must-have, a musical instrument, your hobbies, things that are really are the fabric of who you are. That's essential. It's quite simple. I don't think it needs to be stress inducing. It really just think of what you need. And when we do this practice together at virtually or in person, yeah, we look through the stuff. It's quite easy to identify once you explore that. I hope people on the call also feel that through both of our approaches to this exercise. You get a sense of what essential is.
Yeah. And are you allowed any fluff around the essential items? Like, what percentage of things you own can be non-essential?
Allie, are you trying to get away from what's essential?
Listen, Gal, I've got to tell you, I've got a fabulous mother and a fabulous mother-in-law, but my mom has been collecting everything she can find since she was born, and my mother-in-law has been fighting to get rid of everything she has since she was born. So we've got very conflicting approaches when it comes to objects in your physical space. So I'm just curious, what's your view on how much trimming we can have around
Well,
the
I think those examples are fair. We're not the same, and some people need more things to feel safe and calm, and others not as much. So the answer is not the same answer to any one of us, and that is where my approach really works, because it's very bespoke. It's very organic, and I follow my clients' leads. If they are ready to purge, ready to start anew, and it doesn't mean you'll become a minimalist with half the stuff you used to have or less. It means we're making room for the third pillar of what is emerging for you now. And if you need to make room in the home for that, that's what essential invites. It really is this, it's an arch that's connecting those three dots together.
Okay, so we've skipped the second point. Let's briefly chat through the second pillar.
So eliminating is, of course, the outcome of the first step. Can't get to it unless we first explore and define what is essential. In my work, I have found that we are the lucky people of the 19th and 20th century collect a ton of stuff, way too much stuff. And it just saddens me to think about the impact on the earth, and the amount of things I take from people's homes is enormous. And so when I talk about eliminating, I invite people to think about giving to others who could use things you no longer need. I'm not sure how it works in Australia, but in the US, there are tax deductible donations. So, I'll donate items on behalf of my clients, of course, antiques or high-end clothing or other items that could be consigned or sold. We tend to it this way with the approach and the intention to really minimize what ends up in a landfill. So there are good companies out there that really offers the solutions for that. And it's a big part of my offering to eliminate with consciousness and with care for the earth, as well as, of course, it starts with the respect of properly removing it from the client's homes, with compassion and with care, but then also making sure it finds its proper way away.
Yeah, and of course, the environmental impact is significant, and it's important for us to consider that when we're buying things as well. But I'm really curious, from your perspective, why do you think that we accumulate so much stuff? And the second question I want to ask you is, as Jews, do we accumulate more?
We probably hold on to sentimental stuff more. There's, for every holiday, there's a thing. I think, I would say it's probably fair to say that about Christianity and probably Islam too, especially around books. But yeah, we care about it in such a way. It's so important to hold on to grandma's china, or the silverware, or the classic Judaica.
Yeah, so you're touching on something that is really important, I think, to mention to everybody. Don't think that this session is just theoretical, because we're about to get really, really personal, and I'm going to get a little bit vulnerable because I've picked an item to go through this process with you, girl, in front of everybody, as an experiment. So you can all apply this example to an item or items that you might have at home that you might be wondering, is it essential? Should I eliminate it? If I eliminate it, what am I making space for? So if everyone can see on my screen, this is the item that I've chosen. So this came with my husband when we moved in together, and I'm going to stop short of saying I have nightmares about it, but I do think about it a lot, right? Because this is, for anybody that can't see, I'm going to describe it briefly. This is a silver matchbox holder for Shabbat, and it's got a little tray, right? So I've just got a box of matches here because you can see how much things have changed since this was made, right? The matchbox does not fit in the matchbox holder. So this is not on display in our house. This is one of many items that sits in a cupboard. I'm too scared to part with it, but it has it plays no role. Now this is a family heirloom, right? And it's one of a dozen pieces of Judaica, the other 11 of which are still practical and are used every Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm your client, girl. Take me through this process.
Well, first, I want to commend you, Allie, for just showing up this way. There's no shame in this game, even though I will say a lot of my clients feel so much shame around this stuff and other stuff that they've accumulated. And I really invite us all on this call to seek a new lens on this and hopefully a new approach. We are all collectors. You can see behind me, I love my stuff. It's not about shame. So thank you for pulling that one out of wherever it was buried. Yeah, you're like, nightmares, really? I hope you can work through this. So my invitation would be, or I would ask if how precious it is for the family. Is it fair to ask someone else? Would they be interested in displaying this because it's not making its best life? It's not living its best life in your home right now. Is there another way, if nobody else wants it in the family, but you're still uncomfortable getting rid of it? Is there any other purpose you can find for it? Could it become a napkin holder? Could it become, something else could fit in that? Could you consider the little tray as a separate thing from the pencil, from the matchbox holder? That's the kind of exploration. And again,
I mean,
it's a conversation.
it's so interesting that you say that, because this could very easily be something that a piece of jewelry or
Yeah,
jewelry is, I think it's also, and you talk about this a lot, Gal, it's also the emotional connection. It's the emotional connection to an object and what it means. And I think when you look at something like this that was once, pride of place on somebody else's Shabbat table, and it's a family member, there's a lot of heavy emotion that sits with the fact that it's not holding that same place on our Shabbat table. And what does that mean?
yeah, but that I again invite you to let go of that. That is not yours to hold. It served its purpose when it was that, and now you're invited to ask new questions around it. And it could be quite fun, as you can see. It doesn't need to be, oh my, if it's not a matchbox, what possibly could it be? Let's be more playful with these things. Let's find a new purpose that makes it more appealing, more sexy, or more fun. Um, Also, ask your husband, is he really that attached to it himself? Does it really mean that much to him and his family? If not, there's certainly, you don't need to have nightmares about something that his family doesn't care about. Melt it and make it into a beautiful piece of jewelry.
I love what you're saying about the lightness. It doesn't need to be this heavy hidden fear of what it might mean if you don't keep something.
Right.
And I think we all
Wonder if that's our Jewish burden, a little bit, right? That's how they used it. It's a little bit, it's religious.
Well, I think it's tradition, right? I think that that's one of the most exciting, beautiful things about Judaism, is that it's steeped in such a rich tradition, and that
Right.
symbolism. This is symbolic. But I want to ask you, is it okay if something sits in a cupboard?
100%. Absolutely. I have stuff in storage in my attic that I know I will want to revisit one day. And it's important that I remember that it's there. Um, I think it's important to kind of move stuff around. That's that playfulness of shuffling things and, making sure that they don't just sit there forever and are forgotten. But for sure, if you're not ready to part with it now, it's okay to say not yet.
Mm.
But it's a good check-in point. So
Yeah.
do that check-in, make sure that you're still holding on to it for whatever reason, and that it's conscious,
Mm.
it's a decision, and then move on.
It's such an important point to make. And it's what I love, I think, most about the work that you do, is that it has to be intentional. Things
That's right.
shouldn't be sitting languishing in your home. It's really about being conscious and making a conscious choice, which I think is a lot about, the work that we do, what it has in common as well.
That's right. And I think it also helps land us in the third point of what's emerging, because when you kind of bring awareness and consciousness to what's around and the intentions that you set for certain things, then you can think also about, is now the time to pull that thing out? Or is it more suitable for where I am now in life? Now I'm an adult and I'm in a union and I bring this into my union, and that's very exciting for me. And then 5 years later, maybe it's not as exciting anymore, and there's new stuff that came into the home, and now you need to make room for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the idea of emerging, just it's that intention, setting these intentions and making sure that they fit where you are today.
Yeah. It's so fascinating. And so we're now almost halfway through our 45 minutes together. And so I want to shake up the conversation a bit. So for everyone on the call, you may or may not know, but we generally concentrate in 20-minute blocks. So congratulations if you're still with us. You've passed the first of two 20-minute blocks. So I want to get to something really practical that people can remember from this call and take away. So give us your top 5 tips or hacks for building better habits around wellness in our physical spaces. Number 1.
Stop feeling guilty. We are all collectors. We all have stuff. And that's, we're, like I said before, we're children of the 19th and 20th century, and we've inherited and we've purchased. Just to touch on a point that you've said before, why is it this way? Everything is so accessible. We have so many things at the tip of our fingers. It's so easy to just buy another of that, or order another of this, and not even think twice about it. So I just wanted to touch back on that.
Yeah. And my husband's grandfather had a saying, not that I didn't ever meet him, that he was too poor to buy cheap things.
Yeah.
And it's really changed my approach to consumption quite significantly. So for anyone that wants to write that down,
That's
Jewish words of wisdom, too poor to buy cheap things.
Yeah. And I have to say, and now we are left with all of those expensive things of that time, which were the prized possessions that were purchased with the best of money and all the money, and it doesn't suit us anymore. In the US, I find there's so much, I'm sure everywhere, china pieces and glassware and heavy furniture of the past century that every parent and grandparent at the time thought it was the best investment to pass on to the children. And now it's items nobody wants. It's too clunky and heavy. IKEA is very cheap and right around the corner. And what do we do with all that stuff now?
So habit 1 is
Habit 1
to stop feeling guilty.
Right.
What's our second tip?
I would say be light with it, have fun with it. Don't get anxious around it. Don't take it so seriously. It's okay to think about these things not from the perspective of the responsibility to the lineage, but rather from they would love it that I turned that thing into this thing and I'm still using it, but in a different, unique, and a fun kind of way.
So being resourceful with your things, right?
Creative. That's right. Okay. Yeah. I guess the third would be an activity option, which is shuffle stuff around. Don't be afraid to move things around and see where they land. It's not a big deal to then move it back and say, no, 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 no. Hang that photo there, see if it works. If it doesn't, it's just a nail in the wall. It can be easily patched. We are often so afraid to start things. So I guess maybe 4 will be start a thing, anything, a tiny little thing. And
so give us an example, because I really want this to be practical for everybody that is, let's be honest, going to be spending the next 3 weeks at least at home. So let's get started with something practical. When you say start somewhere, what's the best place to start?
I would say the first thing to think of is your own mindset. Don't start at all if you're coming to it from a place of stress and anxiety. I'm stuck at home now. I should do something with my time. This is a hot mess everywhere I look. I need to move it. Like, I think that's not the right mindset. That's not the right headspace to make any change that you'd be pleased with ultimately. So not at any cost. Yes. And then I would say, yeah, make it something easy, like a shelf, one shelf, a drawer, not the whole, don't think about the whole room. Certainly don't think about the whole house or the whole apartment or the entire space. Just really incremental exercises that you can complete on your own, and that if they go awry and it falls apart, you can easily reverse it.
Okay, yeah, that's good advice. So, for me, it might be starting with all of the Judaica that's in the cupboard, and the things that I use every Shabbat are right at the front, and then there's all the other stuff which is just gathering dust. Maybe start there.
Yeah, and what is that stuff, Allie? What's back there? Can you say more about what's back there? Put you on the spot. Never mind that.
No, you know what? There are a lot of, this is another one, and this might be a question for a rabbi, but we have kippas from like 1935, There's stuff back there that is from our ancestors. Now I'm exaggerating, but there really are. There are kippas from like, Dovi's bar mitzvah in 1972. Yep.
That's right. I've cleared those.
Okay, so tell me, what do you
know where they landed? It's kind of wild. They landed with a rabbi who works with Jews who are incarcerated and they cannot afford to buy kippas, and he just brings them buckets of things. So books, kippas, other, candle holders, yeah, that kind of stuff. And someone introduced me to him and he said, I'll take whatever you don't need. And you'll always find someone who could use those things. So, and when all else fails, it's a garment, it's a textile, it's a fabric. It could be recycled.
Yeah.
With love and appreciation for what it served when it was then. And it was meaningful. If you need to snap a photo of it, make a beautiful rainbow of all the beautiful, colorful kippas, and then let them go.
Yeah. Oh, I love that about you, that you kind of remove that layer of fear around, the symbolism, what it could possibly mean. So have we gotten to the 5 tips yet? So number one, stop the guilt.
Yes.
Number 2, be resourceful.
Sure. I don't remember. Yeah. Have fun. I think have fun, be creative.
Have fun and be creative. Number 3.
Yeah, be resourceful.
Be resourceful.
Be resourceful.
Number 4 was start with one. Number 4 was start with one area. So once you get off this webinar, everyone, don't go crazy and throw everything into the middle of the room like I've done before.
That's Marie Kondo.
That's Marie Kondo. No, we're not going Marie Kondo. We're going the Balabust. So we're just starting with, one small area. But before you even do that, what I hear you say is check your mindset. And mindset's a bit of a cool word right now, but essentially what mindset really means is check your headspace. Why are you doing this? What's motivating you to do this?
And listen, we have all sat through this COVID fatigue. It's a terrible time for our mindset. Um, so it kind of, it almost like invites this, okay, we're cooped in, let's just do this.
Mm,
But that could be a huge mistake for you. It could be the best thing, the best use of time, but it could also really be the worst thing to do at the moment. So really check in with yourself to make sure you're excited about this and really want to engage in this way. It's okay to not.
yeah, it's okay to not. And I love what you say, that when things change around you, things change within you as well.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean?
Yeah, I really believe that when you transform your space, you transform yourself. Our our possessions and our belongings are truly a reflection of who we are, from Judaica and our lineage and our ancestors down to the item that we purchased online last night when we were cooped up, and yet another scarf because they're gorgeous and they're on sale now probably because it's end of season. um, it's they're all a reflection of who we are. So when you look at that and you explore those things and you examine what you need and what's essential, what can be eliminated, and what is emerging for you now, you transform yourself, you transform what's around you, and as a result, there's a shift that occurs internally as well.
Yeah. So talk to me about how that experience has happened with, your most interesting or surprising client.
First, I have to say, I still get goosebumps when I go into my clients' homes and they start with so much shame and guilt. But what I see is how prepared and ready they are. I think by the time you call someone to support you through this process, you are more ready than you think. And it's like watching a butterfly take flight. It's beautiful to watch the internal process that happens for people who are primed and ready to make a change in their lives, a meaningful change. This is real stuff. This is us. It doesn't get deeper than this. And so I'm often really blown away by how engaged and motivated people are to go
Mm,
through this process when they call on me. And I guess that's the fifth thing I will say, because we needed to round up five, right?
yes.
Um, Work with someone, anyone. It could be a bestie. It really doesn't need to be a professional, though we know the trade and we know the skill, and we can really cut through a lot of emotion and heartache and put a good process and a timeline in place to help you see it through successfully. Um, but a good friend or a family member um, are great companions on this journey as well. It could be a beautiful moment between a parent and a kid. It could be a beautiful moment between siblings. And I really invite people to go through this process. I think collectively as humans, it would be the biggest repair we could do to that consumerism, approach that we've assumed over the past a couple of centuries, to really undo that
Mm.
by ridding together, not just accumulating, but also looking at what we have, sharing with others, gifting to others, and doing that with other people who can see us in our beautiful moment of letting go.
Yeah, and it could also be a great Zoom activity, right? So if you're at home for the next
Wow,
3 weeks and you're on this call, buddy up with someone else on this call, and pick a draw to go through with the other person. And
that's a
you
great idea, Allie. I love that, because we do that already with the wine parties, right? Like bring
Yeah.
your drink and call your friends. Bring a drawer, bring a project to go through together. I love it.
I mean, occasionally when I'm feeling really stressed out and I can't find a lid to a Tupperware, I'll throw the whole Tupperware drawer out, and I just, if the lid's not there, it might be in the dishwasher. I don't care. But if it's not in the drawer, if I've got mismatched pieces, they go. It's just occasionally you just get really crazy about how much stuff you've accumulated that isn't serving you anymore. So we're going to wrap up. I've just got one more question because I want to allow some time to answer some of the questions. And we've only got 10 minutes to go. This has just been such an illuminating conversation. And I've loved chatting to you. I want to ask you one final question about, I guess, the Jewish angle to our physical spaces. And wellness. What have you observed from your Jewish clients in particular? And are there any insights you can share with us about, the role that our physical objects play in our homes?
I think it starts with the display of them, and again, the accumulation of historical items that have been passed on to us. Really nothing that you and I haven't already covered. I think it's exciting to see our honoring of those items. I think it's beautiful and probably what is unique to each religion, and ours is gorgeous and full of beautiful, decorative items. So where it feels right to celebrate them, I love that actually is still part of our home's decor and our display and our prized possessions. And I see it in a lot of my clients' homes still. I'm pleased to report that across the globe, we are all still lovingly displaying our candlesticks and our Bibles, and they're all still on the shelves. It's lovely.
It's really, really nice to hear. And on average, how many sets of candlesticks to each family have? Because I've got 3 and I feel like I'm on the road to excess.
Well, the answer is too many.
Okay.
Too many.
So
is what we need, maybe.
So cut back on the candlesticks. I think everybody got to the 3.
Them. Repurpose.
It's a really good point. So I want to run to some questions. We've got a couple that have come up, and I feel like I'm playing God by choosing the ones that I want to ask. So let me just run through them. Okay, we've got a question here. How do we know what will be essential and unavailable in years to come, say 20 or 30 years?
That's a great question. We don't, right? We don't know. We can't foresee the future. So I invite you to ask this question from the inner perspective, not more so what I might need in the future that's not available to me today. If you feel like that item is so rare that it may be gone, it's probably something you want to hold on to. When we talk through essentials, we often really talk about those items that are not those that are one of a kind, for sure, are essential. Those that are specific to us and our family's lineage are unique. And the rest is really how much excess do you need versus what is sufficient to just have a certain amount of and no more.
Okay. Good answer. You know what you're talking about. Okay.
Practice.
A couple more questions. What do you do with photos and letters from an ex-husband or wife if you share children with them? And do you keep things in case the children might want them one day as keepsakes?
Well, I'll turn the question back to that client. Some of them are very eager to let those go and put that part of their past. And some are very conscious that there are other family members who may consider those precious. I tend to recommend digitizing those things so that we do live in the 21st century, and there are fantastic digital solutions to solve for this and make that accessible to any family member that may want them, including said ex-husband or the children. But it doesn't need to stay with you exclusively, and you certainly don't need to carry the burden of maintaining that for others if it no longer serves you.
Okay. Another question, what is your position in relation to kids' toys and ones they very rarely play with or they only play with when prompted? And this is a question for parents, but also for grandparents out there, right? You don't want your apartment or your home full of kids' stuff and your grandkids come over and they don't even play with them. So what do we do with all of that stuff?
And they outgrow those things so fast, right? What was the prized possession 3 months ago is now the most boring toy, and who cares? So good idea, Allie. Pass those on to grandma and grandpa, Saba and Safta's home, and see if they would want it. That would be lovely. Maybe that could be the fun thing that the kid discovers when they come visit them. I would say take some away, declutter those, put some in a bin somewhere, pull that out in a month or two, in a season or two, in a year or two, depending on your kids and their ages. And if they're not excited by that stuff anymore, let it go. There will be so many people who will be thrilled to receive these toys, and you can make room for new ones.
I hear you say let it go. And I mean, I don't know if there's anyone else on this call that has kids or grandkids that like Frozen, but my head just went off
Oh,
into the Frozen. Let
oh
it
yeah.
go. Yeah,
Sing it, Allie.
no one wants me to sing. Okay, I think we have time for one more question, and this is a tough one. So Judy writes that her mother was an Auschwitz survivor, and she was socially isolated, and she wrote out her pain over decades. So truck loads full of papers. A lot of it is illegible. Some of it's in German or French. Judy can't understand it, and now she's passed away. She doesn't know what to do with it. She feels guilt. She wants to read it. She's afraid to read it. It's under her bed. It might be creating nightmares. I mean, it's complex. I feel like I get shivers down my spine reading this, but Gal, you're nodding like you've heard this story before. So tell us.
I'm sad to say I have, right? It's a very personal question, Judy. I feel like my heart goes out to you. And I think that invites a very intimate conversation about what is there, the volume of it, a better understanding of what we're actually dealing with. Some of the stuff might be beautiful if framed, just to preserve her handwriting, the paper, the look and feel of it. Some may be worth sending to someone who could translate, just so you can, get some insight to what's on those pages. Certainly all of it could be digitized to be well preserved and maintained for generations to come. So there are alternatives. The question is how deep you want to dig at this point, and it really is an honoring of your relationship with it, given she's now unfortunately passed.
And I think it's probably also where a professional's services can really help, right? Because you don't just tell people what to do with their stuff. You go through the emotional process with them.
Right, and really a traditional home organizer cannot really help here. It's so much deeper than that, so much more profound.
Yeah. And I guess I also want to say, because I know that Judy's also suggested that, she could turn it into a piece of art.
Yeah.
And certainly in my work as a coach, and I know in your work, Gal, because we've spoken about this before, it's really for us as professionals about helping people bring out their own inner knowing and their inner resourcefulness. Often when you ask the right questions, you find that a client actually holds the answer within themselves already.
It's very true. Very true. And it's just holding space for them to really explore and be able to articulate what is the right approach for them.
Yeah. And I guess that's, when I listen to you through this very enlightening conversation, I'm struck by that sentiment that really your work is as a guide, helping people really uncover their own resourcefulness, and to really think through the process. So, Gal, we've done 45 minutes. It feels like it's only been 2 minutes. I love listening to you and the work that you do. It's really incredible, and I think that you have really tapped into something that is incredibly relevant for our Jewish community, but also for our generation of people that just have so much stuff. So if there's one thing, because we're about to wrap up, if people only remember one thing from you and today's session, what should it be?
Compassion, empathy, let go of shame. We're all in this together. And for me personally, I love doing this work. I am honored, to be Jewish and guiding people through this process from a Jewish angle. But not only, I mean, it's at the end of the day, we all have stuff. And I'm really thrilled to have had this experience of connecting with you today, Allie, and with all of you. And I really feel like it really is just the tip of the iceberg. And that's really it.
So if people want more of you, how could they not? And if people want to chat to you, I know you offer online services. How can they connect with you after this session?
Well, I highly recommend people visit my website. It's balabosta.com. And I think it's posted here, and I will certainly follow up with an email to all of you with the link and other ways to get in touch with me. I think, thank you, Ilan. That's a great way to start getting to know my process a little bit more deeply, a good refresher of my approach, and then we can take it offline and be more unique and specific to you, make it bespoke.
Thank you so much, Gal, for your time. So Gal's very generously done this session for free, so she can share her wisdom with you all. So we are so appreciative. Now more than ever, we're locked down. Well, sorry, we've got stay-at-home orders. It's all about optics, stay-at-home orders. So everybody's at home right now. This has been so insightful, and it wouldn't be a Jewish community if we ended on time. We're 1 minute over. It's 10:46. We are going to wrap up. Thank you so much, Gal, and everyone. Gal will be sending an email with a little bit more information as well. Have a great rest of the weekend, everybody, and see you all soon.
Thank you, everybody. It's my pleasure. Be well.
Thanks, Gal.
Bye.